So it's been roughly 2 years since I packed up my life in Maryland and moved out here to Austin, Texas to live and to work. And I think now is actually a great time to reflect on how it's been and my honest thoughts on living here for the past 2 years. Some people swear by Austin and say it's the best place ever, and some say it's super weird and that you should stay away. I like to think it's probably somewhere in the middle. So this video is going to be real simple. I'm going to go through some of the pros and some of the cons that myself, my fiance, and some of our friends have come up with, and talking through some of those. And we're going to start with the cons. The first one is that it's too hot in the summertime. It's actually pretty self-explanatory, but I remember my first summer here, the temperature was actually over 100 degrees Fahrenheit every single day from like the middle of May through early September, except for maybe like 5 days total, which was a bit of a shock to me at first. And also in that same vein, it doesn't really rain too much either. And I feel that much more now that I have property out here because my lawn doesn't get as much rain as I'd like it to. So I have to spend more and more money on water so that my grass can get water and all that. And that leads me to my next point, which is that Austin's pretty expensive. So Austin's a relatively expensive city. Depending on where you live, rent is high, food can get pricey, and depending on where you are and where you go, things like Uber and Lyft can get pretty pricey too. Traffic and infrastructure. So Austin clearly wasn't designed to house this many people. The highways are usually like 2 to 4 lanes, and then there's 2 to 3 lanes on the feeder roads that run directly parallel to the highway, but that's really not enough. There's still way too many people and too many cars, which creates traffic from like 2:30, 3 o'clock-ish to like 6:30, 7 o'clock. And that's just on the highways. There's also tons of traffic on regular streets around those times as well. And it doesn't help that a lot of like the 3-lane roads have been turned into 2-lane roads so that they can include a dedicated bike lane or a bus only lane. In general, for me, that really isn't much of an issue because I'm kind of used to traffic back home in the DMV. And I think it's actually much worse back over there with all the people commuting from DC, Arlington, and Baltimore for work. The next one is that there are no beaches in Austin. Again, this one's pretty self-explanatory, but if you just look at Austin on a map, it's located pretty centrally, so it's pretty far from any and all beaches. So if you go to somewhere like Houston or Corpus Christi, they actually have some beaches, but I've heard that they're not the best. I haven't been there personally, but some people who have grown up in Texas have told me that. So do with that information what you will. So the next one is actually that you're really gonna need a car to get around. So this isn't unique to Austin, but all the other places I've really been to in Texas, mainly Dallas and Houston, everything is pretty spread out, and you're really gonna need a car if you wanna get around anywhere. And like I mentioned earlier, Uber and Lyft can get pretty expensive. There is public transportation, but I haven't had the privilege of using it yet, so I can't really say how good it is or how bad it is. I will say it's definitely not as convenient as it was back in Maryland because we have like the metro where it can take you basically anywhere you want to be in the DMV area, and there are buses that can get you the rest of the way that the metro can't take you, right? But most places in the country aren't actually as convenient as Maryland either, so you can't really fault Austin for that, and I only bring it up because that's what I'm used to. Now for the pros. Pro number one is that there is no state income tax. And again, this isn't really unique to Austin, but no state income tax in Texas is amazing. I can keep more and more money from my paycheck whenever it hits my account, which is never a bad thing. The next one is that there is a short winter. So this is kind of the flip side of it being too hot in the summertime. Because it's so hot and it takes a lot longer for it to start cooling down, and it starts cooling down maybe around October, November timeframe, and then it starts warming back up around February, maybe March if it's a bit longer of a winter. But even when it does cool down, it'll only cool down to like the 50s or the 40s, maybe 30s if you're lucky, and you'll probably get some like hail and stuff like that during that time. But for the most part, it doesn't really get too cold, and I haven't seen any snow personally. We might get some this winter, but fingers crossed that we don't. All right, so the next one is a pro if you like people, and it's basically just that it's a growing population. A lot of companies, especially like tech companies, are moving out from California all the way out here. So a lot of those type of companies have younger employees in their 20s, early 30s, things like that. I actually have some friends who just work remotely. So their company actually isn't in Texas at all. Their company's in like Chicago or something like that. And they work completely remotely. And because Texas has no state income tax, or they just moved here, and they get to save a lot of that money and they get to live here and do whatever they want to do out here. So a lot of people are moving here, and it is kind of a young-ish city if you like that. I am kind of young, so I do appreciate that. But if you're a bit on the older side, or if you're around my age and you just don't like people, that might not be a pro for you. All right, so the next one is networking. It kind of relates to what I just spoke about before, and where there's a lot of people moving here and it's kind of a young city. But One of the biggest reasons why I've actually decided to stay here, at least for the next few years, is because of the networking opportunities. In the past 2 years, I've been able to meet a lot of successful people that have already positively impacted my life. As corny as it sounds, they say that your network is your net worth, and my network has definitely expanded since moving out here. All right, so the next one is the food. Probably the thing that I was surprised about most when I moved out here was how good the food is. And it's not just like the higher end restaurants, it's the food trucks are good, the holes in the wall are good, the mom and pop shops are good. They have things like In-N-Out and Raising Cane's, and then Terry Black's, which is the best barbecue that I've ever had. And anybody who ever comes out here and visits me, I make them try it at least once before they leave. So the next one is actually that there's a lot of stuff to do out here in Austin. So I've noticed no matter what kind of hobbies you're into, you can kind of find what you enjoy out here. If you like working out, there's tons of gyms, or you can do Pilates or SoulCycle or a number of other things like that. There's trails to hike, arcades, farmers markets, run clubs, martial arts gyms, comedy clubs, local events, music, anime and gaming conventions, bars, clubs, paddleboarding, kayak. And I could keep going and going, but I'd be here forever. There really are so many options that you can definitely find something that you enjoy doing and people that you enjoy doing it with. All right, so I know I said that the last one is the last pro, but I actually have a bonus pro for you. This is really just a personal opinion thing, but I really like the skyline of the city, especially at night. So I lived in a couple of different apartments on Riverside, which is just across the river from downtown, and I had a great view of the skyline. I even enjoy seeing the skyline when driving by on the highway or something like that. To me, the view really never gets old. But yeah, that's really about it. Should you move to Austin? If you like good food, cheap gas, and more money in your pocket, and you can put up with some annoying traffic and some things like rent being a little bit more expensive, then you should 100% consider moving here to Austin, Texas. If you don't like high rent, a growing population, and young people and or foreigners, I don't think Austin is the right place for you. But that's it for this video. I know it was a bit of a different one from the rest of my videos, but I thought this might help some people who might be curious about my honest thoughts as someone who's lived here for 2 years. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. See you guys in the next one.